The Floor Academy podcast is sponsored by Trelama, the trade labor marketplace, where businesses can find skilled trade labor, such as flooring installers, and where flooring installers and other skilled tradespeople can find permanent or project work. You can set up your profile at trelama.com, TRALAMA.com, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. And remember, Trelama is always free for skilled tradespeople. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Phoenix, Arizona. We're here to talk with flooring professionals from all over the world about issues that matter to you. This week's guest is Shane Chandler. Shane's an installer based in New Zealand, specializes in sheet vinyl. He owns SC Flooring and Clock It software. We discuss what helped make him successful, where flooring in New Zealand is headed, and we're also going to cover differences between our countries and talk about youth getting into the trade. Stay tuned to hear all the details. Shane Chandler, are you on the line?
Yeah, I am, Kyle. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. You are our first international guest.
Mate,
So,
appreciate you having me.
yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you for reaching out. This is gonna be fun. We're gonna have a bunch of Americans try and interpret an accent the entire time. So
Yeah, I'll try and speak clearly and slowly.
and use lots of slang terms we don't understand, please.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, perfect. We've been talking for a minute here before I got this going, but why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little background on you, and then we'll take it from there.
Cool. So, my name's Shane Chandler. I'm from New Zealand, Wellington, New Zealand. I've been an installer now for 26 years, predominantly sheet vinyl preparation and vinyl plank. We used to do a lot of cork tile back in the day as well. I've been doing that since I was 16. It was sort of the first job I did after school. Fell into it like a lot of flooring guys. Just did it because it was a job. Figured out pretty quickly. It was probably the first thing I ever did in life that I was actually good at. And
Okay.
I figured out within the first sort of 6 months, I was like, man, I'm getting pretty good at this. And so that gets you motivated, gives you some self-worth, and and really just took the bull by the horns and just flew with it and just loved it. And then went out on my own fairly early. I went out on my own I remember I went to Canada for 6 months to do a snowboarding trip when I was 19. And although I loved snowboarding, I just couldn't wait to get back home and go working for myself. It was weird, so I got pretty homesick on that. And then I remember that night just thinking, man, I'm going to get home. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to do this. Because I knew I could earn some potentially really good money.
Okay.
So that's basically what I did, and I went contracting for. I actually got funded into my first van and tools by a shop, and I worked with them for years and years, and that was good of them. Then I started spreading my wings and working for a bunch of shops, and the rest is history. And then since then, I've taken some time out of the trade, and I've done a bit of development. Where I've put townhouses on some properties that I've got, moved some relocatables on, and also started a software company where we do the job management software for flooring. But I don't have a day-to-day. That doesn't keep me heavily occupied. I don't really have the skills to run that from a day-to-day point of view. So I'm still involved in that, but the other boys are much cleverer than me. They run it and keep that thing going. So I'm back on I've always been on the tools. I took them off. I came off the tools for a little while, I suppose. But I'm on the tools on average about 2 days a week, which suits me great. I really can get to really enjoy it again.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit different when you don't have to do it day in, day out, and make sure that the bills are covered and you can kind of get out and it's, hey, I really get to go and just enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. There was a while where I was working 6, 7 days a week for sort of 10 years, just heavily pedaling all the time. I was getting real cynical with it. I was getting pretty toey with customers. My work was still good,
Hmm.
but I learned to hate it, and I was just chasing the dollars for a while. Um, and yeah, like when you get stale like that, it's time to look for something else to do potentially, or just really take it back a notch.
Yeah.
Because you just end up becoming one of those bitter tradesmen, and and we all know those guys, and I definitely didn't want to be one of those.
So well, yeah, no, you don't want to get into being crotchety and cranky and angry and
No.
hating your life. That's definitely not where you want to be. But you said something interesting. I love that at 19 you're on this trip. You've traveled halfway around the world. You get to go snowboarding. You're probably, getting into a little bit of trouble at that age. And all you can think about is going home and wanting to install some flooring, which is a very mature attitude. And so where did that come from? Where's the drive come from? 16 seems a little young to be starting into flooring. I don't know. I'm assuming
Mm,
you usually go to school until you're 18. So like, how did that all kind of develop into you getting really serious about it?
yeah. Okay. So legally here, you've got to stay at school till 16. I was from a family of five boys. From My parents had split up at that time, so I was probably playing up a fair bit. And both my parents realised they'd always realised the power of a trade, getting into a
Uh
trade
huh.
and having that under your belt. So Dad said to me, he's like, mate, if you want to go get a trade, I'll support you on that. So he said, but you're not leaving school and mucking around. So they got me into a building course to do my building apprenticeship.
Okay.
Um, and I actually got into that when I was still 15, knowing that I was going to be 16 when it started. So they sort of bent the rules there. So I started that. That finished at 2 o'clock, and my dad worked for a flooring shop down the road. My whole family's in flooring. It's quite, it's funny how it works. My
Okay.
dad's in it, my mum's in it, his uncle was in it, I've got cousins in it, and it's all kind of stemmed from my dad getting people jobs over the years. So I started working at a resale shop after two for a couple of hours, and then dad would give me a ride home. And they realised I was a reasonably good worker, which I was. I was terrible at school, but for whatever reason, when I jumped on the tools or had a job to do that was physical, I sort of thrived with it. And I'm not a big guy. I'm little, but I was always fairly active. Um, so they saw that I was a good worker, and they offered me an apprenticeship. So
Okay.
I actually didn't end up finishing that building course because they said, "Hey, we want you to start straight away." So I dived into that, and yeah, and went from there. And then the funny thing was, they put me out with another guy, Tim, who had only been laying flooring for about 2 years as well, and he wasn't much older than me.
Okay.
And because we were wage workers there, and they also had a lot of contractors, we'd get all the big jobs. We were getting all the big sort of crane jobs, all the big tricky jobs. So we were sort of thrown in the deep end. Because back then we were doing almost predominantly sheet vinyl. And in New Zealand, that was a real trade. Whereas from what I see over the rest of the world, it's sort of something that is more DIY. But over here, we were putting overlays down. We were dropping big bits of 3 meter wide right through dining room kitchens into laundries, and we are all doing it by templating. All skirtings and toe kicks were always on, so you had to be super sharp with your work.
Hmm.
It was all full stick down. it's pretty tricky stuff. So you're doing sort of 9 meter patterns and dropping these through in one pieces. And so that was really good experience. And we started so we kind of learnt a lot by ourselves. We had skilled contractors around us.
Okay.
But so that was that. And then before I went to Canada, I looked at going contracting, and it didn't quite work out. Then I ended up going to Canada, and with a bunch of mates. Super fun time, heaps of partying, but yeah, I was homesick, and I just wanted to get home and get on the property ladder. Kind of looking back at that now, saying that, it kind of sounds quite sad, but that was realistic, man. I remember just that night thinking, man, I've got to get home and get on that ladder and buy a rental property. And so for whatever reason that was installed in me, it wasn't really installed in me from my parents, but it was definitely something that was on my mind, and that's kind of exactly what I did when I got home. I went back on wages just long enough to get into a van. Before I had enough money to get that van, I got approached by a retail shop who knew my work and wanted to fund me into a vehicle. And the rest is history, man. And then suddenly at 21, I was earning more money than I knew what to do with. But I was working hard. I was eager, and I was doing long hours. And I just put that money into property, and I bought my first house at 21. And then I think I bought my second one about a year and a half after that. And
wow.
Yeah. So I've never sold them, and I've kept them, and I've sort of chopped them up over the years and taken time off and put townhouses on. And so I've been on the tools as a builder as well for that. Well, builder slash, know enough about building to be dangerous. I get a proper builder in, but I manage the project, and we'll try to manage it. And and that's been fun. So that keeps the flooring fresh as well, and it gives you a new appreciation. You spend a year out in the cold, outside, and it does give you a new appreciation of the flooring industry. There is pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. A little time away is going to give you a little bit of insight. So, I mean, I don't know what the dollar conversion is on like currency. So you said you were making really good money. So like, what's an average installer there working for a shop making? Because here I would hope guys are making like $75,000 a year plus. Personally, I think anybody that's skilled at a trade should be making six figures plus.
Yep. No, we have really good rates here. We can do particularly well. I mean, it's not. I always got through about twice as much work as everyone else, and that's not sort of floating my boat. I just, for whatever reason, I'm known as being pretty quick and tidy.
Okay.
I've had to slow down as I've got a bit older, but no, you can earn phenomenal money. I mean, planks here, I'm charging $35 a square to put down planks.
$35 a square meter, so that's roughly 9 square feet. So it's like $4 a square foot. Roughly
a square foot. How many square feet go into a meter?
Roughly 3. It's like 9 square feet. So you're just under 4, which is. That's a really high rate, man. That's most people here, like high end, there's some guys that are 3-4, like in the better, like more affluent areas. I would say the average install price is sitting right around like $200 to $250 here for like a standard piece of click together vinyl plank or glue down vinyl plank.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We do have good rates.
I see that. I might need to move.
It's a different. We probably don't have the volume that you guys have potentially, or the size sort of work you guys have. But you're talking that's only just for your install rate as well. Most guys will probably be around 30. obviously I do a lot of work for myself, so I'm making sure I'm up around that 35.
Uh-huh.
But we also, I mean, your preparation rates are great. If I've got to grind a floor, which I grind every floor when I do a stick down vinyl plank job,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at $15 a square meter for a grind. You're looking at $10 to $12 for an uplift of plain vinyl. And then you've got your threshold strips and your travel rates on top of that. So, man, you'd have to be doing something wrong. You could easily earn somewhere between $500 and $1,500 a day, depending
Yeah.
on how hard you want to work. Obviously, you've got your glues and your running costs on top of that. But it really is quite good money over here. And it hasn't, now that we've got these Facebook sites where you see all around the world, you can see that we do all right over here.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
need to travel some distances, but yeah, no, we've got it pretty good.
Okay. So, I mean, you've been able to, you started out and you had a shop. Now, that's the other interesting thing. So you said a shop like sponsored you into a van. So
Yeah,
essentially they paid for the van and the tools, but you were locked into a contract to only work for them for so long, or how did that work?
yeah. It was just a verbal contract at the time, and I think I had those tools paid off in about 2 months. So I was nearly there anyway. But that's not a normal thing to happen. It's just there's always been a massive shortage in New Zealand of good sheet vinyl installers,
Okay.
and this was even almost before the planks had hit New Zealand. And you got to remember, I'd say back then, 90% of our houses had sheet vinyl down. We didn't really have the range of flooring. We didn't have the importing that we have today. We're a little country at the bottom of the earth,
Okay.
and that was your main flooring. When you got a kitchen done or a dining room done, it was almost always sheet vinyl,
Mm-hmm.
which is not consistent with what was going on around the rest of the world from what I can see. We didn't have a lot of ceramic tiles. We didn't have a lot of wood floors. You had to be, that top 2% wealthy kind of people to have those sort of products.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so sheet vinyl, it was a tricky job. You only get one chance with sheet vinyl. So a lot of that. So shops were screaming out for guys that were consistent and could lay sheet vinyl. So they knew I could do it. So it was in their best interest to do that. And yeah, no contract. It was like, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And yeah, I just started working for these guys. And then at some stage, they weren't keeping me busy 100% of the time. So I stretched my wings. I don't think that went down too well, but
Yeah.
at the time, but I knew my worth as well, and the
Well,
guys
that's the key right there.
yeah, yeah. I kind of never let shops push me around. Um, I learned pretty quickly that I did my job. I always turned up. I always got the work done. If they couldn't keep me full, then I was going to go elsewhere, and it never ended well. But I looked at guys that worked for just one shop, and they got dictated to a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it was quite common for them to have a day or two off a week just because of maybe bad management or things falling over. So quite a lot of the time it was stuff that was out of the shop's control. So it wasn't necessarily the shop's fault, but because I worked across multiple shops, if that happened, I could find a job reasonably easy. So
Yeah.
I was spending all my time on the floor, and I was just obsessed. If I wasn't on the floor, I wasn't earning money, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was just about me turning over the dollars really at that stage. I was loving what I did, but I was just, if I didn't gross a certain amount that week, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
because you were going between multiple different shops and you weren't locked into one, were you able to negotiate better rates than the guys that were like locked into that shop?
Yeah, I just always had my own rates, and they were probably very similar to what other rates were, maybe slightly higher, but yeah, I was always pretty. I guess if you talk to most shops, they would have said I was pretty expensive, and I was expensive when I always charged for my extras. Whereas I think these guys that were dictated to by shops would let a lot of things fly.
Hmm.
If there were door bars that were missed off. So yeah, there were some shops that would only use me when they had to because they'd rather use their cheaper guys, and that was fine with me. And there was other shops that I did all their work for because they didn't mind paying the extra money because they knew I'd turn up and get the job done. And that was one thing I was very good at. My time management was always good. I never got behind because that would stress me out getting behind because
Yeah.
I'd have 10 jobs in the pipeline. I'd be like, man. So I'd just do the extra hours or I'd just step my game up and so make sure I stayed on track. And I see a lot of guys not doing that. They get behind and then suddenly they don't answer their phones and then, they've got a pile of work, you know, just piling up. And I never worked in that space. That was too stressful for me. I had to be on top of what I was doing. So I was doing that from a selfish point of view, but it actually, worked well financially as well.
Correct. So, I mean, do you think there's you're going to come out after an episode with our buddy Ron Nash? I don't know if you know him from any of the Facebook groups, but really smart guy. And we in
Yeah.
our the episode that comes out the previous week from this one, which will be his episode, we were talking about professionalism, and there's a huge lack in this industry in general. So do you
Oh,
think
yeah.
you were able to dictate higher rates because you had better professionalism than the other installers?
Um, yeah, it was more, yeah, there was that as well, but there's a lot of good professional installers around here. I was Yeah, I always look at it when you're a contractor, you got to be good at three things. You got to be good with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be good with the obviously with the install.
Okay.
Probably the most important. You've got to have good time management. That's another really good thing, and you need to present well. So there's four things. Yeah, just four things. And I was pretty good at all of those things. I was excellent with my time management. I was excellent with the work. I was good with the customer. Um, but I mean, at the moment, at that time, I guess looking back now, the one place I probably fell over, I was a young guy. I probably could have spent more time with the customer and presented a little bit better. But I see so many installers that may be excellent installers, but their time management seems to be terrible, or they get behind of their taxes, or they may be really good with the customer, but their workmanship is pretty poor.
Yeah.
So trying to get someone that has a lot of those skills and put that package together is the key. And yeah, I wasn't perfect at any of those, but I was I was pretty good at most of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I probably, if you put me up against maybe 10 installers, I look pretty good to a retailer, sort of
Well,
thing. But
and you mentioned presentation, and I
yeah,
think that's going to be huge. There's a difference between someone walking in with like a ratty holy shirt and maybe it's
yeah,
got some questionable band that the client might not like, and then a guy that's going to walk in with like a clean plain t-shirt and jeans and go to work, or maybe he's got his company shirt on. There's presentation is a lot of it. If you show up with
yeah.
like looking like you rolled out a bed from a bender last night versus showing up and you're clean shaven and your hair is nicely done, or at least done somewhat, like there's a
Oh,
huge
100%.
difference, and that's I
Yeah,
there's so when I'm and you, I mean, you nailed it. So when I'm talking professionalism, I'm there. You listed off like four different areas where you can really look like a professional, and you've got to kind of check the box in each of them, and that's what I'm after. Is
yeah,
I think there's a big lack in, there's some really great installers. There's some guy, like you said, there's some guys that are really great with clients. There's some guys that are great with time management. And if wherever you're lacking, you need to learn about that and find a way to make a habit change or pick up the pace in it. And you got to grow as a person, because it sounds like you never had a problem finding the dollars in this business, and there are some people that seem to struggle finding money. And it honestly, like, education will get you to the dollars, and you went and you found ways to do that. It sounds like, we haven't talked about it yet, but it seems like you've probably found a way to learn and a way to chat with people and deal with people, and you took notes from other people you were meeting, I'm assuming, and you kind of built up this brand that is Shane Chandler.
Yeah, essentially, I did, because you're right. Expectations of the customer and what they have a vision in their head of what you're going to turn up like. They haven't seen you before most of the time if you're contracting through a shop. Mm-hmm. So they're expecting, and I because I was a young guy and I looked relatively young back then, don't now. The flooring game has sort of put a few years on me now, but that was the hardest thing when I first went contracting, is turning up and you knew straight away that customer didn't really trust what you were doing. Here's a 21-year-old, 22-year-old working for himself.
Yeah.
Going into a shop, and this customer's saved up for a year and a half to get their dining room, kitchen, bathroom, toilet done. And they have an expectation of who's going to turn up, and some young guy turns up. I like to think I was always tidy, but it was more just an age thing.
Yeah.
And I remember turning up to one job, and the old guy just said, "Mate, you're not laying my flooring." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Mate, he basically, I can't remember what his wording was, but he said, "You're a child," or something. And I said, "Mate, I'm laying your flooring, man." And he rang up the shop, and they assured him that I knew what I was doing. And sure enough, once that customer knows you're in their house for 20 minutes, I'm doing big templates, cutting out all the overlay. He can clearly see that I know what I'm doing. He ate his words, and at the end of it, I ended up having to deal with him on the job. But I remember that being a super hard thing, being a young guy, trying to get that customer's respect in a short time that you're in their house. If you're a builder, a sparky, a plumber, especially a builder, you're in somebody's house for weeks and weeks. It's really easy to build a rapport with them over that amount of time. But a lot of the time, you need to win a customer over in half a day. And when you are young, that is hard. That is hard to do. But I was good at it. Probably looking back now, I could have sort of upped my appearance a little bit, but compared to the guys that I was competing with at the time, I was doing it right, Okay. But beauty of hindsight, I think I could have done even a better job. But you're right, I never needed to really hunt the work down. The work was there. There was more work than you could ever handle, and there was just a lack of installers. We just didn't have, and there still is a lack of installers here. We've never really got to the point where there's an excess of installers. It's not really a job that people aspire to do. It's a job you sort of fall into, and it is a tough job. A lot of kids just can't. They don't want to. They either get intimidated by the sheer physicality of it, or just how tricky it can be.
Yeah. It's a shame too. Like this trade specifically is, I personally feel, is no longer looked at as a trade. It's looked at as just something that, Joe the handyman can do, so anybody can do it. And especially now with the vinyl planks and the laminates, which is honestly, like, I'm a hack installer because I can do laminate vinyl plank and engineered hardwood, which kind of just slides together in glue. I don't feel I truly have any worthwhile trade level skills other than I can make it look better than a homeowner. But that's the point, is like there's all these DIY things, and so flooring's kind of a joke, people, there's HVAC schools, there's plumbing schools, and you can go and learn in a school to be an electrician, and there's unions for them, and all this stuff. And then there's flooring. And so it sounds like New Zealand pretty much has the same issue America does in the UK and Australia
Yep.
and pretty much everywhere in the world, is that there's a lack of flooring installers, but there's also nowhere good to go and learn.
Exactly, and we're trying to change that. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the board of Floor Z, which is the governing body for flooring installers and retailers for the industry as a whole in New Zealand, and I'm there as a installer representative.
Okay.
And so we've just put out the best practice guidelines that have been that. So that's about a 72-page document on the best practices to do in the flooring industry. And that's been absolutely, I mean, the whole industry has loved that, because now they've got something solid that when they're pricing against other guys who are undercutting them, they can put them back to, and then they can send the architects to this. And what we intend to do, if the industry wants it, is we want to do a licensed flooring practitioner around that. But we couldn't start the licensed flooring practitioner until these best practice guidelines were out, and we've still got to do one now on the laminate and the click together systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in time there will be a licensed installer in New Zealand. Obviously, we're not going to do it if we don't get industry support.
Yeah,
Because that's hugely important. The industry support is there from most of the shops and from the manufacturers, but we've just got to get the installers on board, and you just need to let these installers know that yes, it will be a bit of red tape, but the guys who do it and do it well, will be able to charge more money, and it will chase a lot of the cowboys out of the industry. The guys who don't pay their taxes, the guys who go from shop to shops, burning bridges,
Yeah.
These guys are not the kind of guys that are going to keep up with training to keep their license up to date. So we certainly do intend to do that. And not only that, I think the young guys doing the trade now, they want a ticket, they want a piece of paper. Their parents want them to have a piece of paper. They want it to seem like a real trade. Because at the moment, if a young guy is trade oriented, not doing well at school, and his parents are like, mate, go get a trade. My dad sent me into flooring because he was in flooring. No one else has been sent into flooring. They're going to the sexier trades. They're going to the builders, the plumbers, the electricians.
Yeah.
Nobody's thinking of flooring. But the reality is, flooring, for me, is you can earn better money than all those trades, potentially. And it's a great trade to be in. So we need to get it to the point where it looks like a career, because at the moment it doesn't look like a career.
Correct.
And that needs to change. And we're in quite a privileged position being in New Zealand, that we don't have different states. We're a fairly small country. So when we do it, we could do it almost across the board, across New Zealand.
Okay.
I imagine, I know in Aussie and you guys from state to state, there's different laws, and trying to put all that together could be a beast, right?
Well, correct. So in my state in Arizona, and I know California, and then I want to say in Utah as well. I believe you have to become a licensed contractor through the state. So here in
Right.
Arizona, I had to take a test that proved I had some kind of knowledge about flooring. And then I was issued my license saying, okay, here, you get to be a licensed contractor, go pick up some insurance and go pick up a bond, and you can now do flooring. So, but there's plenty of guys still around not doing flooring on a big scale that aren't licensed. So in my state, any project over $1,000, including materials, you're supposed to be licensed for.
Yep. But it's not policed particularly well.
Oh no, not at all. Because there's too many guys out there doing it. They can't. The government body doesn't have the time to go and research it. So they're gonna go get the guys that are 50, 60, 100,000 plus in stealing money at this point in deposits, instead of the guys that are out there.
Yeah.
a lot of these guys are doing decent work, because for every like hack non-licensed installer, there's going to be a hack licensed contractor that gets himself in
Yeah.
a jam, and now he's going to go and steal all the money. The only thing those people have is that they get repercussion through the state to go into the I can't think of what it's called. We have some kind of a fund that if you get screwed by a contractor and their bond doesn't cover it, you can, the contractor's recovery fund. You can pull money out of that. Like, they'll give you money from that. So not only do,
Okay, right.
my license is up for renewal this year, and so I'm going to have to pay. I have to pay $270 to renew my license for 2 years. I'm paying another $270 that goes into that recovery fund.
Right.
So
Okay.
if somebody gets screwed over and the bond, if there's $10,000 in
You're
damage,
paying for that.
yes, which sucks because
Oh, that
it's
really does suck. That would leave a sour
well,
taste in
I mean,
anyone's mouth.
okay, but now let's look at it from the business perspective side. Okay, I'm paying $540 to be able to stay licensed for 2 years.
Yeah,
Well, how
that's not much in the big picture.
that's in the big
No.
picture. I
Yeah,
will make that money in one job
one
in
job.
one day
Yeah,
out of a potential of 500 work days. So I have 499 more to make profit. If you throw in my
yeah,
general liability, I'm down another 2 days. So I have 497 days to be profitable. Like,
yeah, yeah.
grand
I
scheme of
know.
things, no big deal. Like but yes, I have to put money in so someone else can go be an idiot.
Yeah, and this is one of the pitfalls of installers, and I'm generalizing here a little bit, but and I'm the same as well. Um, we always moan about spending money, but for me, nowadays, a licensing program that costs me $400 a year, and you could charge, even with a retailer, an extra dollar or $2 a meter, which the retailers would easily pay.
Yeah.
You're, it's just that alone is going to be making you 6 or 7 grand a year, even if you're a very slow installer. So it
Well,
will be a bit of a pain in the ass, and you will need to cough up a little bit, but you got to look at it like it's a way to make money. It's not, you got to spend money to make money a lot
that's
of the time.
exactly it. You're not going
Yeah,
to go buy the cheap table saw. You're not, I don't know what the cheap tool line is down there. We've got a place called Harbor Freight here that's like
right.
just garbage Chinese import tools. There's a couple good things in there, but most of it, like, you're buying it and it's going to break after 2 uses.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
or you can go buy the 600 DeWalt miter saw. Like, you can spend $100 or you can spend $600. Where are you going to
yep,
invest your money? Because what's going to last you, the $100 saw might last you a year, but the $600 saw is going to last you a decade if you take care of it. Like, where's, that's exactly it, is you got to spend money to make money. The other benefit is that because I'm licensed, I automatically have to offer a 2-year workmanship warranty.
yep,
So now my clients not only get peace of mind that their floor is guaranteed to stay together for 2 years, otherwise I have to come back and fix it for free. If for some reason that job fails, I have that bond in place. They're covered,
mm,
so there's assurances in place for them. It's I can
yep,
charge more because I offer peace of mind over the other guy. That other guy that's going to come in and do it for half my price, he doesn't have general liability insurance. He doesn't have workman's comp or a waiver on file with the state saying that if he gets hurt and falls off of something or chops his finger off on your property or whatever it is he's doing, he's going to sue the crud out of you because he shouldn't have been there.
yeah.
I can't do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, see, we don't have that sort of stuff here. We don't necessarily sue in New Zealand. So I see you've got a couple of really good sales tools there to be able to, to let the customer know why you're double
Correct.
what the other guy is. So that's powerful, but we all know some customers are still very
Correct.
money driven,
Exactly.
and they want the cheapest job. I mean, we probably don't have the same issue over here with this to the extent of cowboys, because you guys are so big over there. Cowboys get found out pretty quickly here. They get chased out of the industry reasonably quickly. Whereas you guys are just such a big country landmass. There's probably guys that almost travel around just leaving a trail of destruction in their wake, which brings everyone down, But
Correct.
when we had the Christchurch earthquake here, I think 10, 11 years ago, half of Christchurch was just, it was written off. The rebuild was massive. So we got installers in from all around the world, builders, but in the flooring game, there was guys from everywhere. And look, there were some good installers come in, but the majority of them were rubbish because
Yeah.
if you're an installer and you can't get work in your own country and you're moving to the bottom of the earth to find some work, you're doing it for two reasons. You're either doing it for an adventure or you're doing it because you suck, you
Well, you're
know?
chasing that dollar. That hey,
You're
there's
chasing
easy
that
money.
dollar as well.
The same thing
Yeah,
happened there. There's been big storms on the coast here. And after that, all that
yeah,
insurance work pops up after the hurricanes and things like that. Everybody
yeah,
and their
okay,
mother will
right.
move to like hurricane or tornado like ravaged areas and try and make that quick money, and they'll just do really cruddy work. It sucks.
Yeah, yeah. And you watch them, you could almost watch this trail of destruction as they finally get found out in Christchurch, they then move to the smaller centres and then leave a little trail of destruction there. But these
Correct.
shops are these shops are desperate. There's such a shortage of installers at this time. I mean, it's when New Zealand's booming, the economy's booming. There's so much rebuild going on with the Christchurch earthquake, and that sort of gave everyone a bit of a wake up call in terms of the damage some of the bad installs could do. So hence why we think it's important to get a licensing program in place. And the other reason that we want to get a licensing program in place, if the industry wants it, is if we don't do it, our government's going to do it pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've already said, hey, you guys get your shit together or we'll do it for you, So the last thing we want is for the New Zealand government to start putting blanket rules together and throwing it over all trades, and then we need to abide by them because it's just every trade is so different and has sort of a uniqueness about
Yeah.
it. So us as the governing body, and this is what I'm trying to let the installers over here, look, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And look, don't look at this as it's just Floor and Z trying to get a licensing program out there to print money, because it's certainly not. But this gives everyone an opportunity to actually take charge, flooring guys to take charge of the flooring industry. And it'll never be perfect, but that's going to be the best option. And I look at it over here in terms of the builders and the plumbers and the sparkies all have to be registered and pay money. They all moan about it a bit, but there's no doubt about it. Their rates have gone up over the last 10 years.
Okay.
And I think if you picked 100 of them off the street and said, hey, do you like licensing? They'd all say, no, I hate it, but would you want to go back to how it was? And I think they'd all say, no, keep it as it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, and I get why guys are pretty anti it, but it's going to go that way whether we like it or not, and we don't want it pushed on us by government. We at least want to have some control of it.
Well, no, I think that's genius. To if the government's already come in and warns you that like, hey, we're going to step in unless you take care of it in house. In
Yep,
house is the better option, and that's going to help get guys on board because
yep,
that's you know look, I'll be honest, like the licensing in my state's a joke. Like I was able to pay a couple grand to sit down at a computer and study the test on a computer before I went to a different facility that facilitates the test and take the test. Like I
yep,
memorized answers. Like I didn't whatever.
yep,
But I can go in and I've learned more since then, and there's other governing bodies that help set up standards like the ASTM standards for how to check moisture in concrete or why you need expansion joints in tile such and such a way. Like there are like national standards, but there's no national body over flooring. And so I think for you guys to be able to step in and self police as installer to installer and shop to shop, that's going to highly benefit you. Now, with that, Do you have any kind of certification classes there now? Like, do you have, here we have like the National Wood Flooring Association. There's another one called Certified Flooring Installers. There is the Ceramic Tile Education Foundation, which offers the ceramic tile certified tile installer certification. So there's like a couple of independent bodies that have popped up. We also have NAFCT. So there's a couple like independent things that have popped up that will say, hey, come take our class. It's a couple days, or come take our certification, and at the end we'll give you a certificate saying you know what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. No, we do that. And Floored-U-Cation, the governing body, also does block courses. They do training. And then at the moment, we have another big government department called the BCITO, who looks after all the trades, and they do on-site training. So essentially, they're going around sites signing guys off whether these guys are competent. And in the most part, these guys aren't flooring guys. So some of them are flooring guys, and they do a good job in certain areas, but in other areas, they're not flooring guys. So they're signing off guys that aren't competent yet. And then these guys come down to their second, third year at the block courses, and they are failing. So the answer to your question is yes, there's a proper apprenticeship system that you go through here, but it's not needed to get a job or to work for a retailer or to work on any sites. It's more and it's very good. The guys down at Floored-U-Cation, Jeff down there, the sort of training they do down there is phenomenal. Some of the welding work they do on sheet vinyl, it's next level. It's really good stuff. But yeah, it's not compulsory, and it's flawed in the fact that a lot of these guys, we can only control the block course at Floored-U-Cation. We can't control what's going on site with the sign-offs from the BCITO, but there's a massive shake-up going on in New Zealand at the moment, the biggest one, I think, in 30 years in the industry, across all trades. They're asking all the polytechnics here are being basically scrapped, and there's a big change going on. So we're sitting pretty as an organisation, if everything goes our way, to be able to get more funding from government to be able to take charge of the on-site training as well, which will be huge, because we can employ, we meaning Floored-U-Cation, can employ ex-floor layers or injured floor layers to be doing on-site training, mentoring all around the country, and really control where that apprentice is at. And we're also doing micro credentials, because so many guys back in NZ, you used to do carpet, vinyl, you do a range of skills, but as in the bigger cities especially, guys are sticking to their knitting now. There might be guys just doing prep, or guys just doing sheet vinyl, or guys just doing LVT. So it's changing. It's no good sending an apprentice down as an employer to a block course and him learning carpet, vinyl, prep, and he's only doing one of those things. So we're now we're doing the micro credentials, so you'll get signed off competent on just certain skills, which is overdue as well. So it's fairly exciting times, and everything's sort of lining up to sort of fall into place. But there's still a fair bit of politics and crap going on, and obviously COVID is going to change things up a little bit as well, potentially.
But that's all optional, right? You're not required to go do any of that.
You're not required to do any of that. And quite frankly, if you're a good installer, you look at me, I'm still installing. I don't have a ticket. I've never needed a ticket. Obviously, it's just not, I'm only doing it 2 days a week. It sounds pretty hypocritical, but the only guys that are getting tickets are really young guys coming through now. Us older guys in the generation, none of us have had that ticket. if you're a good installer and you're known as a good installer, you'll always get work. But it's changing. Things are changing. Government contracts are wanting people now with a ticket, for schoolwork or government work. So, we live in a different world that, than sort of 20 years ago where it was sort of self-policed by the industry. So there'll come a time where there has to be a license.
Did you ever do any kind of continuing education or some kind of like manufacturer class that came through?
Yeah.
Like
Yes, of course I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did all that. I went to all the the nights when we learned about new product and what have you. So I was always upskilling where I could,
So,
I was always interested in upskilling.
Okay. So, I mean, you think the continuing education aspect is important, like despite the fact you don't have a ticket for what they're handing out these days saying like, I'm signing off that you know how to do this competently. Like you believe in that system and think it's important.
I believe in that system mostly because there's so many different products coming into the country now on a daily basis. So many different glues, leading compounds, the grinding, the health and safety aspect that goes with everything now. That wasn't there 20, 30 years ago. You had a handful of products that you got to know and you got to be skilled at. But man, you've just got to be. You need to be upskilling now in order to be able to do the job properly. So it's more important than ever. Back when I was learning, you had one latex compound called FLC, where you mixed latex and a bit of sand and cement together, and that's what you put down on a concrete floor to get the floor smooth, and you might need 2 or 3 coats, and you had about 2 glues. It's a very different world now. So yeah, upskilling and learning and just keeping on top of that sort of thing is more important than either. But and look, more customers are wanting people with licensing as well. That wasn't really something customers were asking.
See, now that's interesting.
10 years ago.
The fact that you have homeowners asking about it. Like I have to sell that I'm certified to clients and explain to them like, no, hey, I am licensed by the state, but look, I went out of my way, took time off work, traveled far away to go get this certification over here saying like, I actually know how to do this. So there's an interesting dynamic in that you have people wanting that up front before somebody's allowed to perform the project.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's happening enough for it to be a huge sales tool at the moment, but these retail shops that are putting their young fellas through the apprenticeship systems, they're certainly using that as a sales tool, put it that way.
Well, and therein lies another difference is the shops here don't really, there are some shops that are like big on certifications. I know a couple that they pay for all of their subcontractors to go and get certified and stuff like that, no matter what kind of certification it is. But the most part, they don't care. They're going to make the sale. You're going to go do the job. If they got to send somebody out to fix something, they send somebody out to fix it. So that's interesting on how you're able to, because you are a smaller country, do you know what the population of New Zealand is like overall?
Yeah, we're creeping up to 5 million.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're not tiny, and it's quite a big landmass. It looks small on the map, but
well,
it doesn't feel like a small. I mean, Auckland, I think's got 1.5 million people in the city. But yeah, I mean, compared to the US.
Well, so yeah, to put that in perspective, is the city of Phoenix is like the greater Phoenix area, including like the cities around it. We're like just over 4 million people.
Yeah.
So you're not even like maybe some of the smaller states on the East Coast that are like really tiny, you're bigger than, but essentially the reason you can police yourself, I would say, and you can get everyone kind of on the same page is, look, there's a ton of flooring stores within like 10 miles of me. Or, we can say 10 kilometers. I can get to, oh my gosh, probably like 100 flooring stores.
Wow.
Maybe it's 50. I don't know. 100 might be too high. 10 miles, a 10-mile radius. I bet you I could get to at least 50 flooring stores.
Yeah.
So there's probably 1,000 in the entire valley, maybe more. But if you only have to get 1,000 people together to police themselves, that's going to be easier than getting an entire country's worth of flooring stores together to police themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's hard enough here doing that. I couldn't even begin to imagine what it would be like trying to do that in the US.
But
Because
yeah, no, I
yeah,
think it's
yeah,
interesting that you guys are on that page though. Like you're attempting to get it to work and get the shops are trying to start using this as like, hey, look, my guys know what they're doing because they went and did this, and I think that's only going to help push your industry into more legitimate territory and make it a trade again instead of just something you can do. It'll be respected, It's not, oh yeah, my kid's the guy that lays floors. Like if you hear someone's an electrician or a plumber, you're like, oh man, that's a pretty good career choice. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
Whereas when you
yeah.
hear like, oh, that guy's he installs floors. Man, I can make better money than those guys, or if not just as good. Like it depends on how you run your business. Don't get me wrong, but man, I haven't struggled with money since I started this career. It pays really well if you're semi decent at it, and it needs to be looked at with a little more respect, in my opinion. So I think it's really cool that they're trying to make that happen.
Yeah, and you did right. And by having it as a career, a proper ticket, a proper licensing, you're hopefully going to get a better level of young fella sometimes coming into the industry as well. Not everyone is cut out for a desk job. And, a parent that actively sees that their child is not doing particularly well at school, and wants to feed them into a trade, they're a parent that's looking out for their kid. Generally speaking, that kid's going to have some pretty good morals, generally speaking. But we're not getting those kids at the moment in the flooring industry. We're getting, don't get me wrong, we get some awesome guys come out of it, but you get some rogues in here as well, and guys that just don't last. And I really do believe if we can get this thing ticketed and get it looking like a proper career for the parents as well and for the kids, then
Mm-hmm.
we're just going to get a better level, and we can start to compete and get those young fellas from the Sparkies and the builders, because at the moment they're all going there, and it's crazy. So most of the guys getting into the flooring trade are guys that their parents or their uncle was in the flooring trade, or somebody close to them is in the flooring trade. So it's, they can see that it's a good trade to get into. But yeah, guys aren't just leaving school, with no idea of a flooring trade and seeing this as a viable option
Yeah.
a lot of the time. Obviously, I'm generalizing a little bit here, but that needs to change, and we want that to change, and we're in a good position to see if we can get that to change. It could be a really good case study for the rest of the world, actually,
Yeah.
if NZ could pull it off. But look, once again, we can only do it at Floor NZ. We can only do things. Obviously, if the government really twists our arm, then we have to do it. But we need to make sure that the industry is ready, because this requires just complete industry support from the installers to the shops to the manufacturers. And I think we've got that already, but we just need to make sure we've got that 100% and then push this through, and it needs to be ran by flooring guys as a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a Flooring Z initiative. So we're not quite there yet, but it's going to be a team effort if we do get there.
Now, do you notice that you're getting less young people into the industry? Like, are you struggling to find kids that are
Yeah.
like 18 to 22 that want to get into, well, just the trades in general? The college agenda has been pushed really worldwide now for, geez, probably like 35, 40 years at this point.
Yep.
So are you struggling to see like I guess they're Gen Z. So are you struggling to see Gen Z kids entering trades?
Yeah, we are, and it's not just across the flooring industry.
Mm-hmm.
It is across all industry. Apprentice numbers, I think, have been down. I know there's been quite a few failures too in the third year block courses, or the second year, which is a bit of a shame. So guys aren't getting up to speed quick enough. And that is a little bit because of the micro credentials. Guys aren't learning all aspects of flooring, and that makes sense. It's just the way it's going. But yeah, definitely a concern. Guys don't want to, it seems to be, and I don't want to sound like an old guy, and I'm not that old, but banging on about, oh, young guys don't want to work nowadays. But it does seem to be getting harder and harder to get young guys or girls to do hard physical labour. There's just other jobs they can do. And that's just kind of reality, it seems.
I agree. I interviewed a very bright 11-year-old girl a few weeks back, and let me know what you think of her thoughts. Here was her pitch. We, as the adults and bosses and whatnot, are selling the wrong idea, because we tell everyone it's going to be hard. You're going to hurt. You're going to be sore. You're not going to enjoy this. Okay. And she said, it's fun. It's rewarding. Sell them on that.
You know what? That's pretty simple, but that just struck a bit of a chord with me. Yeah, like,
right?
Damn. Yeah. Okay.
The wisdom of an 11-year-old is far better than somebody that has, how you said, 26 years in the flooring business.
Oh wow! Yeah. But right? I mean, the job satisfaction you get as a flooring installer is phenomenal.
Correct.
I've done other things, and when I've been on the tools building, when I've done some projects, man, you can work for days and days and days just digging or doing something ridiculous. As a flooring installer, you get to see a finished product every day, more or less, and that's intoxicating. That's good.
Exactly. There's a reward at the end of the tunnel, and honestly, I've always found it that people like, man, you can put new cabinets in your house, you can get a new paint job. People notice it for a while, and then it's just kind of there. A good floor, you always notice a good floor. Always. Yeah. But it's because we use
such
it.
A huge piece. Yeah. Well, and it's just a canvas, isn't it, in somebody's house? And it always is. It's huge. So that's really interesting. How did you interview an 11-year-old girl? She's not in the flooring trade, is she?
She is. Her dad is a wood floor installer and sand and finish guy. And he would bring her to work because her mom would have to work, and he would have to go out on the weekend or something and code a job or something like that. And so he'd okay it with his client, and she would like sit in the room that wasn't being touched, and she didn't want to sit in there. And so she would come out and be like, hey, like, I want to help. Tell me what this is. Like, I want to use the machine because it looks really cool. Like, that's a big machine. And so she like started by sanding the floors with like a piece of paper, and then she worked her way up to being able to use the palm sander. And then she got a little bit older, and she, now she's installing, and she can use the like buffers on her own. She's really bright, really smart. Go back and listen to it. It's the Wood Floor Queen with Joe and Hannah Dawson, but she doesn't it's not full time. It's not like she's not going to school and stuff.
No,
and it's not like she's installing 8 hours a day on the weekends with him, but she'll go, and if she needs to put in an hour or two because that's what she wants to do, that's what she does.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome. And I mean that probably brings up an important discussion that's going on a lot over here at the moment, is the woman in trades. And trying to get more women in trades. And I'm in two minds about it. From there's just certain physicality bits, certain physical bits, because my wife works with me on jobs, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And bear in mind, I'm only doing it 2 days a week. But there's just certain things that are just too physical for her to do. And she's a fit, strong girl. She is small, but it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, the other day we were on a job and she was doing an uplift in a bathroom. I had finished the kitchen, the entranceway, the the laundry, and then I went in to see her, and she had tears in her eyes because her hands were just getting blistered up over this bathroom, you know. So, and I think she was just more frustrated at herself that she
Yeah.
couldn't get it up off the floor. So there are limitations from a from a physical point of view. We are biologically different. Just as there's physicalities that, you know, there's 120 kg Tongan man can do that I can't do, you know. But in terms of job management and dealing with customers, I'd have to say the average girl, and obviously there's a spectrum, and I'm generalizing a bit here, is pretty damn awesome at that. And their eye for detail is good as well. But in terms of being able to go out and be a contractor on their own, and deal with uplifts and being able to lift drum sanders and big grinding gear into jobs, it's gonna be tough, right?
You know, see, I got to be really careful here, and you've done a very good job of skirting the line and being very politically correct with it. But I think that's how you truly.
I've got to be careful here
well,
too.
correct, but I think that's how you truly feel. I will 100% agree with you. Men and women are built differently. You can't argue that. Do I think that a woman can't do what men do? I think that, speaking for a majority of them,
yeah, we're talking about spectrum here.
Exactly. But are there some women that are going to get in there and make me look like a fool? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I no doubt. Okay, so I'm not going to say all women can't do it. There's going to be.
I should probably rephrase that.
No, and you're fine. No, but I get it, because yeah, you're right. Like, we are built differently, and not everyone can do it. So there's some women that are. Honestly, there's some women in the flooring groups that are churning out better tile projects, better wood projects, better anything projects than some of the men right now. And you're right. They have an amazing eye for detail. I've talked with some contractors that say the best hires they've ever had are single moms, because they have to show up for work so that they can feed the kids, and they're going to work harder than anybody else because they don't want to get fired because they got to support the kids. So, there's a whole world out there that's going to be met. And I think that if it's what interests you and you want to do it, you're going to find a way to do it. And that's all that matters.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you were to go pick 100 women off the street now and said, hey, would you like to be in the trade? A large majority would be like, no, thank you, that doesn't interest me. And then there's going to be a majority of them that potentially see that as a viable option. And I'd imagine that'd be awesome. And just like if you went and got 100 guys off the street, there's a certain level of guys who'll never be tradesmen. That's just not in their DNA or in their makeup, and they're not interested in it. So we're all different. I know a carpet layer out of Wellington, a lady called Jess, and she's always worked with her son and her husband until they split up. And man, she's about as tough a lady as you can get, and just turns up and gets the job done day in, day out. But even she would say she couldn't do it on her own. It's just trying to get a 9 meter or a 13 meter carpet cut up into some jobs. It's pretty tough. But she's quite a small, slight lady as well. But boy, there's been we've got a big Samoan Māori community in New Zealand, and they're big, strong people. There's plenty of Samoan women that would be able to lift things that I couldn't lift. So, you know, but it's a matter of finding people that want to do it as well. You know,
it's
not
matters.
Something that, it's not something I think that women, generally speaking, sort out. But it is becoming more and more common to see women in trades over
Definitely.
here. And there's groups out there that are really trying to promote this, and full power to them if they can do that. I think it's only going to be good for the industry, right?
I agree. Why not? You know, it's you're getting more opinions in, because and honestly, I'm not. They really do. They have a better eye for detail. Like, I don't care how good of an eye for detail a lot of us men think we have, and like, there are some amazing craftsmen when they are sitting there and cutting tiles with grinders and making custom mosaics, and these wood guys that are making beautiful medallions and inlays. Like, look, you can do it. There's men that can do it, but generally speaking, a woman's probably going to be better at something like that. So let them do it. Just let them do it. Like, why would you shortchange yourself? It'd be ridiculous. You gotta be open minded. If at some
and a great
point,
job for single mums too, because you can, a lot of the time you can do flooring if you're good and you turn up and you want to work within school hours and you're, you'll get employed.
Correct.
And you'll be able to start the job, at 9 o'clock, and you
correct.
obviously bill for your time. I would certainly go for that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the next time I'll probably need to hire somebody again later this year, hopefully. And my problem is that I can only offer like part-time to full-time hours. I can't guarantee you full-time all the time. And so when I'm busy, I'm busy. And when I'm not, I'm not. It's just because I'm newer. I'm still growing a business. And so something like that would be, kind of ideal. Like if I could find somebody that, hey, I can get myself wherever you're going to be by 9 a.m. every day, and I just need to leave by 3 so I can get my kids. Like, cool, come work for 6 hours, because you're still going to add something to my piece of the pie, especially if you're dedicated and trying to get something done. So there's all kinds of options out there to make things work. And I think that's what's great. You just got to be open-minded enough about it. You don't have to have this 18-year-old man there, or man-child, to open boxes for you and sweep the floor. Be open-minded. You don't know what you're going to get until you give them a little training and show, once again, let's show them that it's fun. Don't show them the hard work. Yeah. Let them do the hard work, but show them the rewarding fun.
Yeah. And that, when I look back to when I was 16 doing it, I was kind of blessed to be put out with a guy that also was really still learning at the time, and so I got thrown into, I guess you'd say, the fun stuff pretty quickly. So it was really quick for me to understand that I was getting, basically in a nutshell, I was getting great job satisfaction really early on. I wasn't just doing shit work, and that, then you just feed off that, and then you look forward to going to work, and then you look forward to getting better, and then it's more than a job at that stage. It's actually, it became a hobby, It almost became my sport. I just wanted to get better and better.
That's it. You got to instill that mindset. So Shane, man, this has been really interesting, because we didn't necessarily stick to a topic, but there's so much stuff in here, from you like being passionate about it, and like how you kind of grew a business, to what your country's doing and differences between our countries, to how to get young people wanting to be involved. We covered a lot of ground, and
yeah, we did.
It's been absolutely thrilling. So is there anything you want to plug, or if guys have questions for you, do you want to let them know where a way they can reach out to you, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, if guys want to have a look at what Floored-U-Cation is doing as a whole and how we're dealing with COVID-19 down here, they can go to Floored-U-Cation website. I'm sure if you Google that, I think it's www.flooredu.co.nz. They can go have a nosy at that and see what we're doing as a group, which some people might be interested in. But we've also got a podcast that we are doing. We Talk Flooring. Ours is not as fancy as yours. We're sort of going on warts and all, and just figuring it's not perfect by any stretch. But there's some interesting topics on there. So that's We Talk Flooring. We also do job management software, which, me and another partner too, that I have a day-to-day. I don't have a day-to-day running in. If anyone is interested in that, they can go have a look at www.clockit.co.nz. It's not in the US, so it's really, if guys just want to go have a nosy about some of the things we're doing over here. But I mean, it would be good to have another chat with you in 6 months' time and see where we're at, Kyle. And go from there. It'd be interesting to see what's going to happen with all this COVID stuff. But mate, I appreciate you having us on the podcast, man. It's been a blast.
No, my pleasure, 100%. So here's what I'll have you do. If you send me those links in Messenger,
Yep.
I will put them
Yep.
on the show notes so that guys can click on the show notes and find them easier.
Yep.
I would love to talk again. I would love to be a guest on your podcast if you'll have me.
Oh, that would be
And
cool, dude.
we
Yeah,
can,
absolutely.
yeah, no, thank you for your time. I don't know if I'm talking in the future or you're talking in the past, but something is going on there because
Yeah.
you're like almost a full day ahead of me. So it's Sunday
Yeah.
for Shane and Saturday for me.
Yeah, I
It's crazy.
we burst our bubble for the first time yesterday. We've moved to level 2 now because we were totally isolated for the last 5 weeks. We didn't
Oh,
leave the house other than for groceries, and that was
hmm,
all you could do. So yeah, we burst our bubble and went and stayed with the in-laws because we needed to get a rental property that we've got up to speed for because the tenant was moving out. So yeah, we had a few drinks. So it was good to finally get some social contact, you know. So
yeah,
that was fun, you know. But
good.
yeah, but it would be cool, man. I will definitely make sure I get you on our podcast. That would be awesome, dude. And I'll flick you those links.
All right, sounds good. I will talk with you later.
Hey, thanks, Kyle.
No problem. My pleasure. That's all the time we have for this week. To keep the conversation going, head on over to the Floor Academy Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe so you can hear each and every episode. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and most major podcast directories. Don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you think about the show. If you would like to be a guest, have questions or feedback, you can email us at flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. You can help support the show by becoming a patron over at www.patreon.com/flooracademy. Remember to learn while you earn.